Well, welcome. Today, I have with me one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. She's an actress. She has directed some. She is a nurse out there on the front line doing it to keep us safe during this pandemic. She also is associated with MadLab, and she is one of those young ladies that I have had the pleasure of watching throughout these few years grow. And I mean grow in everything she's done in theater. I've watched her start to take challenges and just stepping out there and doing things while pursuing her goal. So I just wanted to make sure that I put some spotlight on Jessica Gibson. Jessica, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thanks for having me, Julie.
Start off with telling the audience, when did you decide that you had a desire to act and be a part of the stage?
So my theater journey was kind of circular. I feel like a lot of people could say that. But so in middle school, we would have like one play every spring, I think it was. So I took theater classes because everybody had to take theater as one of your like arts classes. We would rotate every X amount of weeks. You'd change what art you were doing. So you'd go through like home ec, then music, then you'd like fine arts, and then you'd have theater or whatever order you were in. So in the theater class, I really enjoyed it. Tried out for the spring play, didn't get in it, but that made me decide I wanted to do theater classes instead of fine art classes in high school. So I took theater classes for the first couple years and then was able to be in a couple of the plays and realized I really enjoyed it. But then, like every teenager, I was like, maybe I shouldn't let myself enjoy this thing too much because it's very unrealistic that I'll be able to keep doing it because I didn't really know about like community theater or anything like that. So I stopped doing it for a few years. And then in college, I needed an elective, and theater was one of the electives. Took it, realized, oh my God, I really love this. And I even like talked to my advisor. I was like, hey, I'm not going to major in it, but I would like to do a theater minor. And she was like, you come in here every quarter, because OSU had quarters back then, and you're never happy or excited when you talk about anything, but you're really excited talking about theater. So I really think you should do it. Here's how we'll get you signed up, da da da. So I did as many acting courses as I could while I was an undergrad at OSU. Then I left the country for a while. I lived in Korea and realized there were workshops and stuff for expats over there. So I took workshops while I was in Korea. And then when I came back, I started looking for theaters here to do stuff with. So I would audition. So I auditioned. And that's how I met you.
Exactly how you met me, through auditions. I was like, when did I meet Jessica? And thinking about all of the people that I have met through auditions and casting for Mind for God Productions, and through that, the Columbus Black Theater Festival. And that's one of my whys, that what I do is because I just love theater and I love meeting people. Let's piggyback and talk a little bit about your career experience. What was that like? When you were there, were you able, with what you were doing, to experience the theater there, to experience any contacts with other people who were actors or in that? When you were there, was there any way that you were still able to grow as an actor? And if so, how did it help you with the entirely different culture?
Yeah, so while I lived in Korea, I was an English teacher and I taught at a middle school the first year I was there, and then in an elementary school the next 2 years. I switched schools because they were like changing budgets, and so they like cut the English program from middle schools and high schools, so I had to switch. Um, but yeah, I think after like, well, while I was there, I tried to figure out stuff to do because obviously I didn't know anybody. And the city, so I lived in a place called Goyang, which it's kind of like Westerville to Columbus. Like it's part of Seoul, the capital, but it's like its own city there, like in the north. So it's kind of like that's the best way I can describe it. It's like its own little town, but it's part of a bigger metropolitan area. And when I say little, it's like the size of the population of Columbus, but in a smaller geographical area. And they were really focused on um, like tourism and making sure that like the teachers had a cultural experience. So I actually got signed up within like my first 2 weeks to learn traditional drumming and through like their culture center. And it was exclusively for foreign teachers. And they had like people who this is their career doing these traditional drummings and performing. And they would teach us for X amount of weeks. And then we had to perform, like the exchange was we had to perform at a festival. So we did that. And I like looked for more things to do, and I figured out there were acting workshops put on because there are like international schools there, and there is, I think like the Soul Shakespeare Company is, I'm pretty sure they're still there, and they cater to like performing Shakespeare in English. So a lot of expat actors were involved in that. Um, and there are people there whose background is acting. So I was able to meet um, people and take various workshops. One of the people I met was, her name's Amy Mihong Ginther, and I believe she's a professor at like one of the UC schools now. I don't remember, but her background's in voice. So I like took voice lessons from her. I learned from her about acting and singing with archetypes, which I was able to actually, when I came back, take a week-long workshop by one of the creators of it. Her name is Janet Rogers. She has been like a professor for a long time in Richmond. And it was just like basically taking anything I could find. But once I made contact with people who were also interested in theater, had a theatrical background, I was able to find more workshops. I probably did like 6 workshops while I was over there. And they would vary from being like one day to like several weeks long classes. So that was nice.
Oh, wow. See, that's so interesting. That's what I love about this show that I'm doing, this segment of Let's Talk Theater with my theater friends. And because I'm learning things about them, and the things that I'm learning about them really show how you are shaped into doing what you're doing on the theater. Jessica, what is your favorite, if you had to pick a character to be, what would and who would it be?
Oh, to be.
Yes. Do you like comedy, drama, mystery?
Mm. Oh my gosh, that's so hard. I feel like I'm in more comedies, but I do really like drama. Uh, Granted, most of the like drama characters I've played are not people I would actually want to be. Um, I did a show at MadLab where I was like a not a great person, but it was a really fun role because it was so different from who I am. And it also had like technical stuff we had to figure out. Like I had to basically like stab myself with glass, and we had to like
I saw that.
all the blood and all of that stuff. So that was interesting, like technical aspects. I don't know, but comedy's, I feel like they're all so fun. That's such a cheap answer to be like, I love everything. But I can't say there's anything I've ever done that I haven't enjoyed. Like,
No, I don't think that that's necessarily so, because in theater you can love everything. Like I like it all too. I like to do it all. I like behind the scenes. You know, I like working props. You know,
mm,
I like that. I like stage management. I like all of these little bitty aspects of theater. And do you find yourself sometimes maybe being stereotyped and put in, people want to maybe want you to do, because you're such a great, your comedic timing is just perfect? And do you know, because my thought about it is, for me, I think it's harder to be a comedian than drama, because to be a great comedian, the
mhm.
timing is so important in everything. How you say it, when you say it, and the way you say it, it all, that's what makes the line funny.
Yeah.
Somebody else can say the line, get no laughs, uh, lose completely what the writer was trying to do with the line. And then other people get it. What do you think about that? What do you feel is as your most challenging roles as an actress? Is it when you do your comedy, or is it when you have to go outside of you, and be, which you have to go outside of you anyway for both of them? You know what I mean? What do you think?
I definitely think comedy can be harder just because, I mean, you're right, timing is a big part of it, but I also think it's like people have this misconception that with comedy you play for laughs, but what makes comedy funny is like that character believes 100% what they're saying. And if they don't, then it's not funny. So, like, me and you were in Steel Magnolias, and like Annelle, she's not a character, she's not a person I would ever be, and I don't really relate to her. But if you don't play the things she says as though you 100% believe what she said, like you believe it, then she's not funny. She's not a funny character. And I know I had a bunch of people talk to me about that character, and they were like, watching the movie, I never liked her, but I liked her watching you play her. And I think part of that might be like people told me it was funny what I was doing, but I think it's also like you have to believe as the character what you're doing.
Yeah, and Still Magnolias, that's a really good example. Yeah, I forgot we were both in Still Magnolia. We did so, we've done so many things. You kind of forget, like, oh yeah,
Mhm.
we did that too. And that's another, I think, really good play that I really like being in, because the dynamics of all of the characters of the women
Yeah.
were so different, but yet they still had some of them had just the whole inner emotions and things. And like you said, things being funny just because the way the person is.
Hmm.
I played Weezer. Weezer, she was somebody, a lot of people be like, get away. I don't even want to deal with her, And, but she was funny, not because she was trying to be funny, but just because of the way people perceived her and the things that she said, she believed so wholeheartedly and was so passionate about it. Yeah. Jessica, you've been working a lot with MadLab, not
Hmm.
just as an actress, but I believe in some of the administrative duties. Talk to me about this next level, in your theater experience.
Yeah. So I'm the ensemble chair at MadLab. So what that means is our ensemble is a volunteer body. They kind of help with the artistic direction and running of the theater. So if you come to see a show at MadLab, that's who will give you your ticket or seat you or clean the bathroom before you get there to make sure it's nice and ready. Um, Currently, we have over 30 people on the ensemble, which is, I'd say like at least 10 more than when I became the ensemble chair. We have a big focus on like trying to get as many voices as we can because we do like talk about the direction we want the theater to go in, things like that. We obviously have an artistic director who has the final say in things, but she'll ask for the ensemble's help with like, oh, we got all these plays submitted. Who wants to read plays or who wants to do staged readings of the finals and or watch them and give opinions about what shows we're going to pick, things like that. The ensemble also will write shows. Uh, so, for example, coming up to be released online because we filmed them as like segments instead of live. We have a Halloween show, and it so it was like anybody I believe could submit and like audition, but most of it's ensemble members who are writing for it. And I wrote two of the scripts. And so we'll do things like that. Or if we have an ensemble show, which we have every once in a while, the ensemble will like write for it and act for it. Things like that.
Talk to us about your moving from actress to playwright, which I'm just thrilled about. Because that's my passion, writing. So I'm so so thrilled that you are taking that next step, because we need voices, or we need to hear your people's voices of their time.
Mm-hmm. I really like collaborating when writing, and that's what this like Halloween show is, like a writer's room style. So I am not super motivated if I have to write by myself. But if I'm able to like write with other people or like bounce ideas with other people, I'm really good at brainstorming and like editing. So, um, or like, you're like, oh, I have this concept. Will you help me fill it in? I'm good at that type of stuff. And I have a friend, Ariel Wiles, who she writes all the time. And she'll have me like read her scripts and then I'll help her bounce ideas back and forth. That's really what I like. Um, this is probably my first time trying to come up with scripts by myself, which was fun. And I like I'm proud of what I wrote, and you'll be able to see them. But I feel like I do better if there's like support or like it's collaboration. So I really like that aspect.
Well, I'm glad that you are. I'm just glad you're participating and getting out there and starting. It sounds like you want to be more of an editor, which is needed. Believe me, there's so many aspects to that. And that's another, all of our sitcoms and things that you look at on TV are made by groups of writers.
Mm-hmm.
They sit it, like you said, around the table, come up, throw this out here, this, that, and other, and then you end up with an end product from a group of writers by putting all those things together. Do you think, you're out there now on the front lines as a nurse and working with people who have been affected by COVID?
Mm-hmm.
How do you see at the end of this, maybe we'll get some writings from you about that experience as a nurse? Do you see this experience helping you in any way when you're thinking about characters or writing about different things? Is it giving you any kind of different perspective on, people, any characters, how people feel and react to tragic circumstances, things beyond their control, and happy times, I'm sure, when
Mm-hmm.
people are recovered and that and just that whole thing that you guys that are on the front line, which I commend and pray for you guys all the time. I have a daughter-in-law that's a nurse too out there. And it's, first, thank you. We all are doing our part, but, you guys, thank you, for what you're doing out there, putting yourself really at first risk. How do you think this experience will help you, or will it help you as a writer?
I think so. Working in the hospital, and I work on normally we're a surgical or trauma floor. So people getting like emergency surgeries, or a trauma can be something like a car crash, or they fell, things like that. But since we have private rooms, we were like designated COVID only for a very long time. We also get like prison overflow. We get basically overflow from everywhere in the hospital right now, because if people can't be in rooms with other people, they have to come to a floor with single rooms. So while we're not all COVID right now, we do get COVID, things like that, or people who are immunocompromised have to be in one room. So we get a variety right now. We're not just surgical like we were when I first started. But even with just the surgical patients, like, you see people from all walks of life, all kinds of experiences, people who react completely different to the same thing, because the treatments don't change that much depending on what's going on. So that does help. Like, people will react in ways you never thought they would react to something, and you tend to remember like the funnier ones or the more outrageous reactions. But you do also remember the people who like cried to you, and that's the first time they've ever acknowledged what's going on, or they'll like confess things to you that you never thought a stranger would tell you, but they trust you because you're a nurse and you're there and they know you're there to help them. And it's, especially with COVID and dealing with that the first several months of the pandemic, especially when it was like the numbers were surging and we were really finally starting to acknowledge this is an actual problem. I think there's a lot of comedic gold in the fact that regulations changed probably twice a day, just because they got new information and you have to integrate this new information into what you're doing. And it's incredibly frustrating to have to change everything you were doing yesterday because there's new information. But it's also kind of funny that it's like, oh, today you wear this, but tomorrow you're going to wear something else. Then the day after that, you're going to wear something else. The day after that, it's going to go back to you wore the first day. And like, it's frustrating, but it's funny. So there's like our experiences as nurses, and then the way the patients react. So I think there's a lot there. Yeah.
Yeah, it really sounds like it. And that's why I said, you guys, you're right out there at the front. So you're right in the middle of all these, like you said, we do one thing today, tomorrow, the rest of us out here, we're just as confused, we're confused at what's going on with the information we're getting. And so I'm happy I asked you that question, because I never thought about that. That puts a whole nother look on it when you talk about people that are really, we're sitting out here looking on TV trying to figure out what's going on, but you guys are actually there in the moment trying to work and help people and figure out what are we doing today.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't really have time to even think about what's going to happen tomorrow, can you? Because you got to worry about today, and then tomorrow comes. So it's almost like, for me, I would just be working on the thing knowing that tomorrow may change.
Yeah.
Just what I got to do today. And tomorrow I'll do whatever they tell me to do tomorrow. You know? Yeah.
Online that said this is the first time most people have ever had to watch the scientific process happen in real time. And after that, it kind of made me shift my perspective a little bit to be a little more, not forgiving, because it's not like I was like mad at people, but a little more understanding, I guess. Because they're right. Like, if you don't, like, you learn about the scientific method in school, but if you've never seen it happen where it's like, oh, we have this information and our guidelines are based on this information, but now we have new information, we have to change it. If you've never seen that happen, you aren't going to understand why everything's taking so long. Why don't they know about it like they know the flu? And it's like, the flu's been around forever. We know how to deal with the flu.
So that's really good insight, you know, for anybody, you know, the people that are working it, the patients, you know, the family members, who my heart goes out to, that have lost loved ones and are right now suffering and can't even be in the same room, you know, in hospitals with their loved ones. So it's just a progression, a progress. So before we end this interview, I like to ask all of my guests, if you had to tell some young person or senior person who was thinking about, they want to get into theater, maybe they want to go out of the country, man, you know, take a chance, go out of there, you know, and get some stuff. What advice would you, Miss Jessica Gibson, actress, playwright, nurse, director, what advice would you give them?
I think my best advice would be to audition as much as you can, just because a lot of theater and acting, I feel, is rejection. Even if you're good, you may not be the best person for the part, or you may not be the person they had in mind. And rejection is hard. So I feel like going on auditions like that has, one, it helps with rejection because you're going to get rejected most of the time. And two, it helps with any nerves you might have, like helps you get used to the audition process. Three, it helps you meet people. So you may not gotten the part this time, but now you've met this director or whoever it is, and now they know your face. And if you made a good impression on them, they'll remember you for later. Going on auditions serves multiple functions, I guess. It helps in a lot of ways. So I say audition.
How do they get in touch with you at MadLab?
If you go to madlab.net, we have like our ensemble and our artistic team and all of that. Everybody's listed and everybody's emails listed. So even if you don't remember me, you can go to madlab.net and find my contact info. So that's probably the best way.
All right. So I want to thank you again, Miss Jessica Gibson.
Thank you.